All right. Hello, hello, hello. This is, let's see, today is April the 28th, 2025. And we're just going to do a quick update of or refresh of the secure party process from the checklist. I just want to do a reminder of how this works and why it works and just a few other things. There's some new people in the group, and so I want to give people an opportunity to hear my explanation of this and why I do believe it's still valid and it will still work. So let me start with that part. So we're talking about becoming a secure creditor, right? This is the paperwork list that is in the folder. I think it's in folder A, but it has the whole entire checklist of the secure party process. Now, what being a secure creditor means is that if for some reason the United States was to default on its obligations, you would be placing yourself in line to make sure that you are compensated for whatever you say that this country owes you. That's literally, according to the Bankruptcy Act, how it goes. And so I was having this discussion earlier, but what I think actually happened is a group of individuals with a contract, probably more than likely the Moors, they had filed I know it was them, something Bay, something like that. They had filed a lawsuit against President Trump in 2019 regarding trying to recuperate funds from a contract that they had based on the fact that the United States government was indeed bankrupt. And so basically what you see in this term of Trump is the first thing he's doing is addressing this whole possibility that the United States is bankrupt. I find it to be amazing, actually, because basically those guys thought they were going to force the United States into a public bankruptcy. But basically what seems to have happened is he is pulling the country completely out of bankruptcy, out of default. And that doesn't seem to have been a part of the plan. So I think that the secure party process is still important because that's now. This country has been around for 250 years, and that's now. Once this paperwork is done, in another 100 years, 50 years, 20 years, if they decide they want to go, $40 trillion in debt again, there's not going to be somebody there to save them. And so it'll be much easier to push the bankruptcy issue at that time, and your paperwork is going to be done for many generations. So it's really a future, setup. And I feel like our ancestors, the people who built this country, they either didn't have the capability of setting up all of these documents, because there was no internet or, typewriters and stuff like that. So they didn't have the capability of putting all these documents together. But in this generation, we do have the capability of doing this. It's kind of one of those long-term planning, generational type planning, where if they try to somehow change the terms of the contract, which I do believe they are with the External Revenue Service, that's what they're going to use to collect the tariffs through Department of Homeland Security. So there may be something that we can do at that point once they actually announce the formation and we can see the charter documents for the External Revenue Service, which I heard today that the External Revenue Service is the one that's actually collecting all of the tariffs, not the Internal Revenue Service. And so the External Revenue Service, like I said, is being run through DHS. So they haven't released too much information. They're keeping that very, very close to the vest. And so I'm going to be looking at that because we might have to move where we place our claims to that particular department as opposed to the IRS, or we need to potentially establish our accounts with this external revenue service so they can't like just close the IRS and all the accounts that are there, just close them and say, okay, we're even. We can't do that either. So having all this paperwork done and being on record saying, no, we not like just going to let y'all close the accounts over here, open up the accounts over there and kind of like just wash it even. We're not playing that game either. So I'm keeping an eye on how they move in because we have to know how to move with that. Of course, I'm sure some of the other people who do the research on the internet are also keeping up with that. But who knows if they're able, if they're going to be able to put their bias aside to see what's actually happening and not get caught up with the painstaking nature of following what's going on within the government from day to day, which doesn't bother me at all. So I'm just going to review the secure party process list, but I want to talk about this in context. So once you're a secure creditor, then the next step is to work on the beneficial owner paperwork. So the beneficial owner paperwork is another packet that some of the stuff from the secure party process goes into that, but most of these documents are totally different documents. And the need to become the beneficial owner is to assign the accounts. So you opened accounts or you clarified accounts, designated accounts with the secure creditor. Now you need to say who's the owner of these accounts, because again, when you go and open an account for like a car or something, they assign the account to you on one end, and then on the other end, they say that they own the account. So that way the credit or the insurance policies that they put out on these accounts, they're going to be the beneficiary, but they sack you with the payments. And then, of course, like I always say, whenever they collect the payments, they actually say that they're gifts. They're not designated because the paperwork, which is a 1099-C, is not completed for you to accept the debt and then also discharge it. So it's a lot of shenanigans they're doing with the way that the process is supposed to work. So the beneficial owner is documents that you put together, and you don't necessarily send these to someone. These are documents you have should you have to prove that you're the owner. You're the literal owner of your own account, your own social security number and stuff like that. So that's why I don't do the beneficial owner first, because you don't really send that to anybody. That's not a send out set of documents. Those are documents that you have for your personal use. Plus, it also includes an additional different security clearance. I mean, not security clearance, but a security document contract, a security contract, which allows you to set up basically a contract between you, the person who was born at the hospital, and you, the living individual. Because again, they play so many games. You never know when you're going to need these documents to prove a point. And that's kind of where this stuff comes in. But you definitely use these documents to mail out when it comes to the packet that comes after that, which I call, nobody's talking about this. This is entirely my creation, but it's the trust indenture for the Cestacute Trust. So we all know that when you're born, they give you a birth certificate, they give you a Cestacute Trust. That's not in, nobody is debating that. The thing that I kept asking was, where's the trust indenture? So if there's a trust, there's got to be creation documents. There's got to be an indenture. And so the conclusion that I came to after listening to all these people talk about this stuff is that there is no trust indenture. And because you have not established there's an indenture, basically they're operating the trust without any rules. So you take all those documents, some of the documents from the secure party, some of the documents from the beneficial owner, and you put those with a few more documents because all a trust is a business rules, but the rules are kind of, they're just non-statutory, meaning no laws quote to bind the trust you put into the trust that binds it together. And so when you establish that, hey, I have a trust, it's called the Sestacue Trust, and I noticed that's an indenture, so this is what I did. I created. I'm still in the process of seeing what the responses are to this, but I 10 copies to send out that I have, basically sitting on through this Mercury retrograde and this weird energy that I'm pretty much getting ready to start sending out to these different companies. And also not the companies, this is for the government agencies to make sure they understand, hey, this is not a trust that has been discarded. This is not a trust that has been abandoned. It's where the rules that you have to follow. Don't tell me. I'm sending you this document, and I want it to be known that I want my accounts, I want records for my accounts, I want my account to be closed, I want them to be returned, I want them to put you in, want you in the proper place, whatever. I want y'all to handle these accounts. So that's what the trust. And I was at a lag because it's a lot of paperwork. I don't think it's a lot of different documents. It's just that once you start actually writing trust indentures, like you will be working on your own personal trust indenture too, and then you would see the kind of things that you would. What are you, Quentin? Please.
I'm drawing your tattoo.
Okay, don't. I have tattoos. Don't draw on me, please. You would see the kind of things that you would want to put in your own personal trust indenture because
Mama, I got my tattoo.
Okay, I see. That's cool. I paid, I don't know, like $500 or something like that for this guy to teach trust and stuff like that. And then I realized I actually learned all this stuff in college in the process of working on my doctoral degree because all it is a business. It's just literally that's not a statutory business. And so I wasted a lot of money. Literally wasted a lot of money because I already knew a lot of the stuff because I have an advanced degree, which I guess totally forgot about. But I thought it was something that I hadn't heard of. I was like, man, I've been doing, business plans like this since, I don't know, like 15 years. So none of it was new to me because I was already operating under understanding because I had a master's degree and so this whole process ends with you establish your huge structure, which again, to my understanding, it does. No one's even talking about doing a trust indenture for the trust because people don't really understand trust. They just want to use them to try to get money or whatever. But no, like you can't utilize a trust without an indenture. And so people trying to access the execute trust, but they don't have actual trust indenture. I'm believing that that's why some of the stuff it works because all of one person say trust, and people are not telling you all the different documents they've done. You would never trust indenture because I've done one and just don't tell people that that's what they did to make their things work. People who's teaching this information, it doesn't actually behoove them or these. Excuse me. Okay, it doesn't behoove them to teach these things in such a way that they work because then that cuts off their money supply and their understanding. They want people to just keep that because they can never solve any. Instead of being innovative and creating new things that'll be beneficial to their audience. So, but we don't do any of that stuff over there. Although I am going to, if there's people that want a more personal hand in preparing these documents or whatever, I am going to implement a consultation package where they can get like an hour call every week and I can go over their documents or something, stuff like that over the course of like 2 months so that, they can get through the whole process of something, because most of these processes in about 2 months you'll be done, and you spend like the last 30 days kind of like waiting to see what happens. So I am going to introduce something like that where of course these calls will always be free, and then if you want personal calls, you want somebody to walk you through the process, double check your documents and all stuff like that, I'm gonna have as an add-on. It just makes sense because nobody's really doing that. They're not really they're not also providing the templates and making sure that people are doing them correctly. I don't know why, but people don't do that. So I'm just going to run through this secure party process checklist again. Now, again, if you haven't started any of this process, I highly suggest, while I'm available and I'm going to be doing these calls every week like I was doing before, that you work on this, because I can almost guarantee you by the time the end of September comes, I'm going to have to go back to whatever it is they be having me work on. And I'm just not going to be available. So there's another opportunity for people to kind of get the stuff done while I'm here to answer questions. Also, we'll talk about taxes. Next week, I'll do an overview again on a tax filing. I got to get a redacted one, but I'll do an overview on a tax filing next week. But I want to go over the secure party process list first because I think it's more important. So in section 1, basically the only thing that you have to physically do now, the UCC 11, and I'm just going to go through the list, so whenever you get a chance to pull it up, you'll see what I'm talking about. But the UCC 11 search is to see if anybody has any open UCCs on you, like saying that you're the creditor or you're the debtor or whatever. 9 times out of 10, they don't do that. They don't do this part because they only do it if they're getting ready to do something else, like file a court case against you or something like that. But 9 times out of 10, they don't even document. This is how you know for a fact these companies are taking your money and declaring it as a gift, because they don't even file UCCs on you. There's no reason why, if you have a car loan, you shouldn't have a UCC filed on you. Because that would be documenting that, but they would be lying because they're not the creditor in the car loan. They're the debtor. So they would like be falsifying documents, and that's why they don't file these. So only an individual or a lawyer or something like that will file one of these against you. But 9 times out of 10, you don't have any, or if you've been to jail, they'll file one against you, but definitely not for any of your actual debts. So that's kind of like, why wouldn't they do that? Because they're actually the debtor and you're the creditor in the situation. So if they filled one of these out, they would be committing, a crime. So that's why they don't do it. The copyright law, that means I will say the copyright law is having your name copywritten. Going through that process, you're going to need those documents. Now, we do those documents if you need it. Of course, I think everybody's basically done it, but if you need it, let me know, and I'll get you the information on how to copyright your name. You have the commercial security agreement. You can do that now before you get started, because you're going to need that. You're also going to have to file the UCC 1. The UCC 3, you don't file until the end, when you're getting ready to send out your second treasury packet, because that's when you're going to put your bond on there. So the UCC 1 is before you do the bond. It's just you establishing that you, the living person, is the creditor over the Social Security person who is the debtor. Okay. I'm not talking to you right now. Thank you. So that's why you'll have to do a UCC 1. And on the Word document, I have the language on there that you would put on the UCC 1. Now, something I will mention that I haven't is that when you do that UCC 1, make sure that you put all of that text there under the collateral. I did not do mine like that. It was very, very silly. I included mine on a separate page. But what they did, at least in Maryland, is that they did not put a stamp on that second page. So it looked kind of crazy. It's like the text starts. No. Put that back, please. Thank you. Like it's the text starts, but it doesn't have it all there because it's on the second page. So you just want to add all the text you can, literally, as the collateral. So wherever it leaves off, just add the rest of it. You want it to all be on that, in that collateral section on the page that they stamp. Because I messed that part up. In the UCC3, that's when you'll put the bond on there. And I don't think I put the language on the document for that. But anyway, when people get to it, because we have the capability of doing the bond. So when you get to that part on the third treasury packet, that's when I will have to get the information from you for your bond. I have witnesses and all this stuff to witness the thing for you, and I have another person, because you have to have two people who have done this process. I have another person here who has done the process, so we would get the signatures for you, and then all you would have to do is sign it. Another thing I do with okay, can you take that out there, please? Another thing that I do with the bond is I send you copies. So you don't send the treasury your one copy and then you don't have any more copies at all. Like you only have the scanned copies. No, I send you a copy on white paper, and then I'll send you a copy on the bond paper, because that's another thing. You have to use the bond paper. So of course you could do this by yourself, but then you would have to create the bond. You'd have to buy the bond paper, and then you'd have to get someone, because this is what people are doing. You have to find someone else who has done this process, mail it to them, send it all around the country. I mean, it's ridiculous the way people do stuff, and it's just ridiculous. So because I'm facilitating, I made it easy, but it was way more difficult. People were sending documents with their private information on it to strangers halfway across the country to get signatures, and then wasn't even printing out multiple copies, printing out one copy, which means the one you sent to the Treasury, that's it. You don't have any other ones. So imagine if the Treasury didn't get it or some other problem came up. You would have to go through the whole process of doing all this stuff all over again, sending it around the country. It just doesn't make any sense. You should have an original one for your records. People make copies of originals all the time. And that's something that I frequently do. Like if I know I'm going to mail something out, I will make more than one original copy of my document. So for example, I didn't talk about this, but I've also done the silver bond. I think I did three. I personally made copies of my bond. That way, if something happens, they try to act like they didn't get it or whatever, I have another copy of my original. No, you're not going to act like you didn't get this when I have another copy of my original. It has the tracking number on there and everything, and it's literally the same as my original. I just do everything like that, at least in threes, sometimes in fours, but at least in threes, so that the one that I send in, especially to the Treasury, I have a copy of it, because who knows what is going on at the Treasury right now. There's no that these things are being handled properly, right? So, all right, so that's section 1. Section 2, the way I use this secure party process checklist is also my master. So, like, I put my Treasury, the account number, reference the red label number on here for both of them. Anything I put on the UCC, I have it stored within this document. That way, if I have to refer back to it, like when I transferred all my stuff from my commercial UCC to my non-commercial UCC, I didn't have to go digging up UCCs to find everything. I had it all in this document. So all I had to do was copy and paste it from the same language I had put on the UCC is on my non-UCC. So now I'm covered. On both ends, I didn't have to worry about that. So I use this as a holding for all the information. So I make sure it's right here, and then I still have it in other places, but this is so I can, if I have to refer to it, like someone's asking me a question, I can go right to the document, pull it up, and read straight from the document what's on there. So for the first Treasury packet, you would send the UCC1, and the Form W-8, the Affidavit of Tax Exemption foreign status, the revocation and termination of franchise, and a hold harmless agreement. And that all goes in the first packet. So wherever you file your UCC, if the state that you live in makes it difficult, you can do Washington State. I did mine in Maryland, but Maryland, they changed their process. So Washington State is always going to be the go-to if you're having problems with your state. So Section 3, these are not things that you send in, but this is documents that have to be done because eventually you'll have to do an SS4 if you do a foreign grantor trust. Now, I'm still trying to figure out what the foreign grantor trust is for, how you actually use it. And I have not, like I said, seen really good examples on what you use it for. So I've been telling people, let's just wait and see how this actually gets used before you stress yourself out trying to talk to these people, because the only way to get the foreign grantor trust EIN is to actually call in and go through all this rigmarole with these people. And it's just, I still don't see how people use it. I've heard how people use it, but I have not actually seen it in practice. And for all intents and purposes, you can use your sole proprietor EIN, your estate EIN, and your banker EIN in the same manner, from what I've seen. So then you would have to do SS4s and 8832s, but I haven't talked about that at all. That's more like in the tax part, but they have it here on the list because the way they did the secure party creditor, they tell you to do the 98 series EIN before you get to this point. And this is just like, because you have to wait 30 days. Once you send your first packet in, which is that one in Section 2, you have to wait 30 days before you send in your second packet. So they just have a bunch of stuff for you to do kind of while you're waiting for that 30 days. All right, so Section 3, we'll get back to that when it's like extremely relevant, which I don't think I did all of these I did the 8832s, but I don't think I sent them in because I had a problem with something. So I don't even think I did this part. Which could be a problem too. Anyway, moving on to Section 4. So Section 4 is what you mail to your birth state, or if you're not a citizen, to the USCIS. And that would be, there's a document called the Notice Element. Then you send a clear copy of your birth certificate endorsed on the front and back, a chargeback copy of your birth certificate, which is endorsed on the front only, and a copy of the hold harmless agreement. You pack all this stuff up, you put it in an envelope, and you send it off to either the Secretary of State or whoever handles birth certificates in your state. So in Maryland is like Health and Human Services, but in other states it's a Secretary of State. You have to figure out for your state who is handling birth certificates, because it's literally different for every state. And this will be the birth state. Okay. So on Section 5, this is for the second Treasury packet. You have a verified actual and constructive notice. You have your international bill of exchange, which you have to put on your UCC3. You have a 1040ES, a 1040V, a certified copy of your UCC1, which is the same thing. You have a W8, which is a copy of your original one that you did in the first packet. You have a clear copy of your birth certificate, an accepted for value copy, and a chargeback copy of your birth certificate. Those templates are in the folder. You have a lawful order for money. You have your affidavit of taxes and foreign status, your affidavit of revocation and termination of franchise, your master discharge and indemnity bond, which it's only for discharging debt. Like, this is the reason why people try to use it for other things. It doesn't work. It's only for discharging debt. And it's really only for discharging the debt that the government has assigned you. From what I can understand with the whole Doge thing and all of that, it doesn't seem like they assigned anybody any debt. It's really, really weird. And eventually they are going to have to rectify these books. And it's not clear to me how they intend on rectifying these books, because everybody assumed that the Treasury kept two sets of books. I don't think they kept books at all, like zero books, like no accounting. This is what it seems like to me, because they were sending out payments without even noting what the payments were for. They were sending out payments to terrorists. They were sending out payments to deceased people. They were doing no checks of anything. So I don't think the Treasury was keeping books at all. Not just, oh, they have two sets of books, but like, no, they don't have any books. So whenever they get around to assigning this debt, I guess you'll have a bond on file so that they can't try to say, well, you were alive, your bloodline was alive, y'all are responsible for this much. No. We have a bond on file. And if they try to say, no, you don't have a bond on file, you have a copy of it. That's kind of like the point, at least as far as I'm concerned. And then you have a copy of the commercial security agreement, which we talked about in the first one, and then a copy of the copyright approval, which if you've done it with me, you already have that. So, and then you pack all that together and you send it out to the Treasury. Now, from what I understand, when you send it to the Treasury, at least before, it could take up to 8, 10, 12 months before you get that, because you have to send it with a green return receipt. Okay, so it could take you 12 months for them to return that to you. So just keep that in mind when you put the return address for the return receipt. And when you receive that return receipt, that's when your bond is ready to use. Now, I made the mistake, because it wasn't clearly explained to me, of not even putting a return receipt, the green card on there. So I never got that back, because even if I had an address for them to send it to, I didn't even send it. So I did send one when I did my most recent bond and when I did my most recent Treasury packet. So I'm hoping that I'll eventually get the receipts for those, but I never even sent it with my second Treasury packet because it wasn't clearly explained to me. So, but since I've sent documents since then, they can't act like they didn't receive it. So I'm just trying to point out all the little things that never really got pointed out to me, because until I sent the documents in and they were like, oh, well, did you do this? Did you do that? I'm like, oh, I was supposed to do all this stuff? Like, that's not on this checklist. Like, please explain to me why this is not on the checklist. So again, once you start working on this stuff, like, you can send me a message or whatever, and I could just, go through and make sure that you didn't like forget something, or I don't see anything like glaringly obvious. Maybe I forgot to mention it or whatever, because I did this 3 years ago now, so all this stuff is not like in the front of my mind. And also, when I did it, I didn't even do everything correctly, because a lot of the stuff, like I said, is not written down. It's kind of like, oh, I heard you do this. I heard this is how it works. It's like, oh, okay. So I'm actually not even going to necessarily get confirmation that this thing has been accepted or registered or anything, because that's the truth. You may get confirmation. You may never get confirmation. Because who knows what these people are doing, and there's no way to check, because if you try to call them and ask them about this stuff, it's only probably one person who even knew what they were talking about. And who's to say that one person didn't get fired, because they fired a lot of people inside the Treasury and just in the government in general. So I'm not even 100% sure that they're handling this stuff the proper way, which is why I like the silver surety bond, because I'm sure someone knows how to handle those. There's a legitimate protocol for that. So I'm waiting to, like I said, receive my return receipt from my silver bond, but I would like to see some confirmation that they actually received it, they're processing it or whatever, before I tell anybody to do any of that. But these documents are always good, because you have a copy of them for your records. You pass them on with your important documents to your bloodline, and should the should it ever come up, you have these documents prepared to show them. That's just like we have the deeds to the land, especially the land that they stole from us. If you have the deed, should it ever come up, you have the deed. They don't, because when you buy a house now, they do a paper deed. So these people are buying houses and stealing houses they don't even have the deed to, and everything is digital. I have a paper deed. So should it come to, oh, we don't know whose house this is, so on and so forth, well, I have in my possession my paper deed. So you can't say that someone else has it because it would have been transferred. That's kind of how it works. And you don't have proof that it's been transferred. So these are kind of like legal principles, without being too legalese about it, with how some of this stuff works. So next week I'm going to go over, because this is going on a little bit long. Again, like I said, if you're working on this stuff, reach out to me so I can, double check, with you. Oh, did you do this? Did you do that? To make sure you got everything, that you can possibly get correct. And so once you start on this process, it takes at least 60 days to finish it up, because you got to do the paperwork to send in the first packet. You have to wait 30 days. Then you can send in the second packet. And there's so many documents with the second packet, especially when it comes to getting the master indemnity bond, me getting all the information, because it doesn't make sense to do the bond until you have all the paperwork done, because you're going to need information from different various places within that whole packet to put on the bond. So that's why it's like, no, when you get to the end of that process, then I'll go through and create the bond for you and send it to you, and all of that. But it doesn't make sense to do it before you've done all the other paperwork, because from where I am, most people on the East Coast, it's only going to take a day or two to get to you. So you want to basically just be waiting for the document to show up so you can sign it and put it in the mail, instead of, just have stuff sitting around. It could get lost, they're messed up or whatever. You want to be basically just about done with the whole process. And then I'll do the bond for you. So, if anybody have any questions on this kind of stuff, reach out to me. Next week I'll take questions. It's too much going on over here, but I did want to talk about this. I'll also go through, like I said, a tax return and kind of the stuff that you need to get ready. If you didn't file your taxes, just file an extension. You have until, I think, August if you file the extension. It's not too late to file an extension. Just print it out and put it in the mail, or go to free tax or whatever and just put it in the mail. If you usually file taxes. Now, one thing I care about the taxes is that for me, I'm still waiting for my federal tax return to be processed. Even though I filed it online, because I have sent in so many other tax returns, i.e. my 1040Xs and the other ones, it stopped my whole tax process. So I'm assuming that some of this tax stuff that people were doing is the same stuff that the cartels and the illegals were doing. And so basically, my taxes are still pending. They did send me a letter, and then I had to respond to it, which I did respond to it. And I think that was about a month ago. So I should be hearing from them soon. I'm not really sure what the problem is. It didn't really indicate what the problem was. One thing is they combined my sole proprietor taxes with my personal taxes. And I was like, that's not how I want my records to be kept. I want y'all to keep them separate, because my personal taxes have to deal with minors and my sole proprietor has to deal with some other stuff. So y'all shouldn't be combining those together. That's not even the same entity. So I had to address them on that issue for one, and then, whatever other information they requested, which I sent them everything, but they asked for wasn't abnormal. Someone else I know also got a response from the IRS, and it was basically like, what did they say to them? Oh, can you just verify, oh, we just have to verify your thing. And that's another thing with the IRS. When you, if you haven't done this, I highly recommend that you go and you pull your tax transcripts. And something else that you can do is set up a PIN number for this current year of taxes. I highly recommend that, because if you set up the PIN number and you put that on your tax return, that will confirm that you are the one that did it. So if you don't do it, that is causing some people's tax returns to be delayed. You want to set this thing up and kind of get it, like, that's just should be part of your process. They want people to confirm that it is them who's filing the taxes. You should indeed do that by getting the little tax ID number. And when you fill out your taxes, you put that number on the tax ID, on the taxes, so that there's no confusion about if it's you that actually filed the documents or not. I think that's probably going to become mandatory, because it'll be the only way that they can verify that the person who is filing the taxes is actually the taxpayer. And this is important because in 2020, when they were sending out the stimulus checks, because a lot of people, especially here in the state of Florida, they go to these tax people to fill their taxes out. Something that so basically all of their tax refund money went to these tax preparers. And so when they sent out the stimulus checks, the stimulus money also went to the tax preparer. So people were protesting alongside with the Black Lives Matter protests. They were protesting outside of these tax preparers because the tax preparers was acting like they didn't get the stimulus money. They didn't know what they was talking about. A huge scandal that I don't think was ever actually resolved. It was pretty horrible what happened. So I think they're going to eventually push for this, because on the when you sign up for the IRS .gov account, you'll be able to put in your bank account number, your individual mailing address, those kind of things, so that if there is some kind of stimulus or payments or whatever that the government is going to send to you through the IRS, there's actually a record of who you are and your address and your PIN numbers and stuff like that, that correlates with who you are, as opposed to this money went to these tax preparers and the people never saw any of it. It was really horrible. So also, like I said, it's a good place to pull your tax transcripts, see what's on there, make sure that they're correct, stuff like that, because if there's problems, then you can address that. But you don't want to kind of wait until you're in a battle with the IRS to be trying to address problems, because it's almost too late then. Goodness gracious. So hold your questions for next week. If you have any, if you're working on this secure party process list, then and you want like some feedback, don't hesitate to reach out to me, and we're going to try to get back in the flow of working on this stuff, and I'll be more prepared to answer questions next week. So this call was recorded. I'm going to put the recording in the group so that you can refer back to it if you have any questions. So that's all from me. Peace and blessings to everybody. And I will see you guys next week at 8:30.